Do Mainers trust their government? Do they feel engaged in their communities? And do they feel good about the future of their state and their country?
Those are some of the questions that were asked in a new survey and report on the civic health of Maine. The work was sponsored by 3 partners: Colby College's Goldfarb Center for Public Affairs, Public Engagement Partners, and the Maine Community Foundation.
We talked with Nick Jacobs, who teaches government at Colby, about what the report aims to tell us.
At its basic level, it's an attempt to understand, how do Mainers feel about their government? How do Mainers feel about the institutions that they make decisions in? And what can be done to maybe improve it?
Some of the elements you look at are people voting. Do people feel engaged in their community, their state, their country? Do they feel democracy is working in their community, their state, their country? One of the interesting findings in the report is that Mainers feel pretty good about things on the community level, about how their town government is working. They feel less good about how state government is working, and they feel way less good about how government is working on the national level.
The closer you bring government to the people, the more people are willing to say, yeah, I trust my local officials. And the same is true also about people in general. You ask about people in the sort of the abstract nationwide, not so sure. You ask about your neighbor, the foundation for consensus and the foundation for solving problems at the community level is there.
Something from the report that has gotten a lot of attention is whether people think the votes will be counted accurately in the presidential election. And there's a real divide here. Something like 90% of the Democratic respondents say they think they will be voted accurately. For Republicans and independents, there's much greater skepticism that they'll be counted accurately. Again, this, I assume, sort of mirrors what we see on the national level and isn't really all that surprising, right?
It's surprising to the extent that ever since I came to Maine, which wasn't too long ago, one of the things I've spent most of my time talking about with journalists, with people on the street, with people that have been living in the state a long time, Maine was always different. Maine sort of stood out from the national trends. And in some important ways, it still does, right? If you look at our voting patterns, we're pretty exceptional in that we have a Republican senator that we elected 4 years ago, but the state went Democrat. Only state in the entire country to do that. But increasingly, these national trends, national level polarization, are starting to affect Maine in a way that arguably it hadn't before.
When it comes to our personal health, we all know what we're supposed to do. We may not do it, but eat right, exercise, get enough sleep, so forth. This is a report about civic health. What does Maine need to be doing to have good civic health into the future?
Well, I'd start with just the basic that we shouldn't be complacent about our civic health. We shouldn't take it for granted. And one possible read of this report is to look at the findings in comparison to other states, including nearby New Hampshire and Vermont, and say, hey, Maine's doing pretty good. But some of that is because we are just kind of lucky. We're an older state on average.
And older people tend to be more engaged in voting and in their communities.
Yep. For a long time, we've had a pretty stable population, but as we were just talking about, that's changing. So, just as we need to be more mindful of our health, just as we grow older, right, as Maine's democracy grows older, as it changes, we need to be mindful that we can't take these things for granted.
I forget exactly how the question was phrased, but it was basically, are you confident in the future of? And people were a lot more confident about the future of Maine than they were about the future of the United States or the future of democracy.
That's right. And I think that dovetails well with our findings about people generally having more confidence in their governments that are closer to home. Nobody's saying that Maine needs to turn so inward and only care about ourselves, but it's a foundation on which to build.
The report is called Strengthening Maine's Civic Life. You can read it in its entirety.
You'll find a link to it in the 207 section of our app or website. We'll be back in a moment.